June 18, 1982, 7:30 in the morning. London, England. A postman is crossing Blackfriars Bridge on his morning route when something catches his eye beneath the scaffolding below. He stops. He looks closer. And then his blood runs cold. A man is hanging from the scaffolding under the bridge. Suit and tie. Expensive shoes. Grey hair. His feet dangling just above the cold waters of the River Thames. Police are called immediately. They pull the body down and begin searching for identification. What they find is extraordinary. The man is wearing 2 watches, 2 pairs of underwear. His pockets are stuffed with bricks, 11 pounds of concrete. On his body, they find $15,000 in mixed currencies, British pounds, Swiss francs, Italian lire. There is no suicide note. And the most suspicious detail of all, his briefcase, the one he carried everywhere, the one that reportedly contains secrets powerful enough to bring down governments, is nowhere to be found. The dead man's name is Roberto Calvi. He is 62 years old. He is the chairman of Banco Ambrosiano, Italy's second largest private bank, a man with connections to the Vatican, the Mafia, and one of the most powerful secret societies in the world. The newspapers will call him God's banker. And his death, initially ruled a suicide, will become one of the most controversial, most debated, most terrifying murders in modern history. Because Roberto Calvi didn't just know where the bodies were buried. He knew where the money was hidden. All of it. Every secret transaction. Every corrupt deal. Every illegal loan. He was the man at the center of a Venn diagram where the Vatican Bank, the Sicilian Mafia, the CIA, and a shadowy secret society all overlapped. And someone decided he knew too much. 43 years later, no one has ever been convicted of his murder. The money, over $1.3 billion, has never been fully recovered. And the secrets in that missing briefcase? Still missing. This is the story of Roberto Calvi, God's banker, the most dangerous man in Italy, and the murder that shook the very foundations of the Catholic Church. To understand why Roberto Calvi ended up hanging under London Bridge, you need to understand 3 things: the man, the bank, and the web of corruption he built around both. Roberto Calvi was born in Milan on April 13, 1920. His father was a bank manager, so banking was literally in his blood. After serving in World War II, Calvi followed his father's footsteps and joined Banco Ambrosiano in 1947. He was brilliant, methodical, ambitious, and he had a gift for making money move in ways that nobody could quite follow. By 1971, he was general manager. By 1975, he was chairman, the most powerful man at Italy's second largest private bank. But Banco Ambrosiano wasn't just any bank. Founded in 1896 by a Catholic priest who wanted to create a bank free from the influence of anti-Christian forces, Banco Ambrosiano had deep, institutional ties to the Catholic Church. Its largest shareholder was the Vatican Bank, officially known as the Istituto per l'Opera di Religione, or IOR, the Institute for Religious Works. Think about that. The Vatican Bank was the biggest shareholder of a commercial Italian bank, a bank that would become the center of the largest financial scandal in Italian post-war history. And at the head of the Vatican Bank, managing its finances, was an American archbishop named Paul Masinkas, a tall, imposing man from Cicero, Illinois, who had risen through the church's ranks to become the Pope's personal bodyguard and eventually the head of Vatican finances. Calvi and Masinkas became close. Very close. Too close. In the 1960s and 1970s, Roberto Calvi began expanding Banco Ambrosiano's reach. He opened holding companies in Luxembourg. He created offshore subsidiaries in the Bahamas. He established branches in South America, Peru, Nicaragua, Colombia. On paper, it looked like aggressive international expansion, the Bank of God reaching into the developing world. In reality, it was something far darker. Calvi was building a massive network of shell companies, phantom corporations with no real employees, no real offices, no real business. Just names, just accounts, just money flowing in and out. And through these shell companies, he was doing business with people no respectable banker should ever touch. The first was the P2 Masonic Lodge, known as Propaganda Jew. P2 was ostensibly a Masonic fraternity, but under the leadership of a shadowy businessman named Licio Gelli, it had become something else entirely. Something terrifying. When Italian police raided Gelli's villa in March 1981, they found a membership list that sent shockwaves through Italian society. 962 names. 3 cabinet ministers. 44 members of parliament, the heads of all three of Italy's secret intelligence services, generals, admirals, newspaper editors, judges, industrialists. P2 wasn't a club. It was a shadow government, a secret network of power that had infiltrated every level of Italian society, with its tentacles reaching into the Vatican, the Mafia, and according to some investigators, the CIA itself. And Roberto Calvi was their banker. Through Banco Ambrosiano, Calvi bankrolled Licio Gelli's lifestyle and P2's activities. Gelli and P2 owed the bank close to $300 million. P2 had even used Calvi's bank to purchase Corriere della Sera, Italy's leading newspaper, and then immediately fired the editor and shifted the paper's coverage to serve their agenda. But P2 was only one of Calvi's dangerous clients. The second was far more deadly. The Sicilian Mafia. Cosa Nostra, the Sicilian mob, needed clean money. They were making billions from heroin trafficking, extortion, and murder. But dirty money is useless unless you can spend it without attracting attention. That's where Calvi came in. Through his network of offshore shell companies and with the assistance of Vatican bank accounts, Calvi laundered mafia drug money on an industrial scale. Hundreds of millions of dollars flowing through the Vatican, through Luxembourg, through the Bahamas, through South America, emerging on the other side clean, legitimate, untouchable. The Mafia's banker. The Vatican's banker. P2's banker. Roberto Calvi was the most dangerous man in Italy. And he was about to make the most catastrophic mistake of his life. By the late 1970s, cracks were beginning to appear in Calvi's empire. The Bank of Italy, Italy's central bank, had been watching Banco Ambrosiano with growing suspicion. Something wasn't right. The numbers didn't add up. Money was flowing out of the bank through offshore subsidiaries and never coming back. In 1978, the Bank of Italy launched a formal investigation. What they found was alarming. Banco Ambrosiano had made hundreds of millions of dollars in loans to its own offshore subsidiaries, companies that existed only on paper, companies with no assets, no business, no ability to repay. Where had all that money gone? Into P2, into the Mafia, into Vatican-linked accounts, into the pockets of powerful men who could never be named publicly. In 1981, as the P2 scandal exploded across Italy following the raid on Gelli's villa, Calvi found himself at the center of a storm. He was arrested. He was tired. He was convicted of illegal currency export, moving money out of Italy in violation of strict currency controls, and sentenced to 4 years in prison. He was fined $13.7 million. But Calvi was released on bail pending appeal. He retained his position as chairman of Banco Ambrosiano because he was too valuable to lose, too connected to abandon, too dangerous to sit in a prison cell with nothing but time to think. He knew everything about everyone, and everyone knew it. But Calvi was changing. The trial had shaken him. The investigation had exposed the edges of his web. And the people he'd been serving all these years, P2, the Mafia, the Vatican, were getting nervous. What would Calvi do to save himself? What would he say? Who would he name? In desperation, Calvi wrote a letter to the one man he believed could save him, Pope John Paul II. June 5, 1982. Milan. Calvi sat at his desk in the Banco Ambrosiano headquarters and carefully composed a letter to the Pope. He and his secretary had gone through several drafts, trying to get the tone exactly right. The bank was collapsing. The debts, over $1.3 billion, could no longer be hidden. The international creditors were demanding answers. The Bank of Italy was closing in. In his letter, Calvi warned the Pope that Banco Ambrosiano's impending collapse would be a catastrophe that would damage the Catholic Church. He appealed to John Paul II for help. He implied that the Vatican bankers' involvement in the scandal, its role as guarantor for hundreds of millions in phantom loans, would be exposed. He was, in essence, warning the Pope, "Save me, or we all go down together." The Vatican did not respond. 5 days later, on June 10, 1982, Roberto Calvi disappeared from his Rome apartment. Using a false passport in the name of Gian Roberto Calvini, he fled Italy. He traveled to Venice, then caught a private plane to London via Zurich. He was terrified. He believed he was a target. He told people he feared he would be killed. He was right. In London, Calvi checked into a series of safe houses. He was accompanied by Silvano Vida, an associate with alleged connections to organized crime who served as a kind of bodyguard, a handler. He was making frantic phone calls, trying to negotiate, trying to find a way out. According to his family, he was working on a last desperate deal, trying to bring in the powerful Catholic organization Opus Dei to assume the Vatican Bank estates and save Banco Ambrosiano. His wife, Clara, later claimed the Pope himself had asked Calvi to help restructure Vatican finances. That Calvi was killed precisely because of this deal, because powerful forces within the Vatican and P2 didn't want Opus Dei gaining that kind of financial power. Back in Milan, on June 17th, Calvi's private secretary Graziella Corica jumped, or was pushed, from a fifth-floor window at Banco Ambrosiano headquarters. She left a note condemning the damage Calvi had done to the bank and its employees. The same day, the Bank of Italy officially stripped Calvi of his position as chairman. Banco Ambrosiano was collapsing. The secrets were spilling out. Billions in missing loans were being discovered. The creditors were in a panic. And Roberto Calvi, the one man who knew where all the money had gone, was sitting alone in a Chelsea safehouse in London. At around 7:30 p.m. on J.